Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. It was supposed to be a normal grocery run. Just eggs, coffee, and paper towels. That's all I needed. But that morning, the receipt changed everything. I was at checkout lane 6, staring blankly as the cashier scanned items. Behind me, someone laughed. Familiar, sharp, effortless. I turned instinctively. It was Kayla, my wife. She wasn't alone. She stood just outside the automatic doors, her hand resting gently on the arm of a man I had never seen before. A tall, polished guy in a dark coat. They were laughing at something. Then she leaned in and whispered in his ear. That whisper did something to him. His eyes lit up. His hand moved to her waist. And she didn't flinch. She smiled. The cashier handed me the receipt. But there was something scribbled on the back. I turned it over, confused. In rushed handwriting. Don't go home. Not yet. No name. No context. Just that. I looked around. No one was looking at me. No one handed it to me. It felt like a warning from the universe. Or maybe from someone who knew what I was about to walk into. I didn't go home. I sat in my car for 4 hours. Shaking. Thinking. Replaying every late night. Every cold shoulder. Every fake laugh at the dinner table. I hadn't been losing her slowly. I had lost her completely. When I finally walked through the door that evening, she was there. Sitting on the couch. Red wine in one hand. Phone in the other. She didn't expect me to be back so soon. I asked her one question. Who is he? She looked up. Eyes wide for a second. Then flat. Eli, don't do this. No denial. No guilt. No panic. Just tired contempt. Like I was an interruption in the middle of her new life. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just nodded, walked into the kitchen, took off my wedding ring, and placed it beside the rotting bananas she forgot to throw out. She followed me. She begged. But I was already gone. And 3 years later, just when I thought it was over, someone knocked on my door. The knock came at 6:43 p.m. on a Wednesday. I remember because I had just finished microwaving leftover soup, the kind with too much salt and not enough anything else. It was quiet. Always quiet. That's how I lived now. Barely speaking unless necessary. Teaching online literature classes no one cared about, and sleeping on one side of the bed like the other half still meant something. I wasn't expecting anyone. The first knock was gentle, almost hesitant, like whoever was out there didn't want to wake the house up. But the second was firmer. I froze in place, spoon still in my mouth, body stiff as if the walls themselves had shifted. For a moment, I thought it might be her, Kayla. Maybe back with another apology, another story to twist my gut into believing I was the reason she had kissed him. I approached the door slowly. I didn't ask who it was, just looked through the peephole. And my stomach dropped. It wasn't Kayla. It was a teenage girl. 15, maybe 16, wearing a red hoodie and braids tucked under a knit cap. She was rocking back and forth like she was building up the courage to run, or to speak. Something about her felt familiar, but I couldn't place it. I opened the door halfway. Can I help you? She didn't answer at first, just stared. Her eyes were a kind of blue I had only seen once before, in a photograph, in a frame that I shattered the night I left. Then she reached into her hoodie pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and handed it to me without saying a word. I opened it. One line. Written in blocky, uneven handwriting. You don't know the whole story. No name. No signature. No explanation. I looked back up to ask who she was, but she was already halfway down the driveway. I shouted after her, but she didn't turn around. She slipped into the passenger seat of a black sedan parked at the corner. I couldn't see who was driving. The car pulled off like it had been waiting there all along, ready to vanish the second the message was delivered. I stood in the open doorway, that paper shaking in my hand like it held a ghost. You don't know the whole story. I hadn't heard from Kayla in years. I had deleted every photo, every voicemail, blocked her on everything after she begged and cried and claimed she made a mistake. Even while her new boyfriend, yes, that man from the gala, made headlines for getting indicted in some corporate fraud case. I thought she had been out of my life forever. But now this, a stranger with her eyes, with his silence, showing up at my door out of nowhere. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at that note, reading the same 7 words like they might rearrange into a clearer truth. But they didn't. They just sat there, heavy, unmoving. The next morning, I found something even worse. Taped to the outside of my car window was another note. This time it had a name. Her name is Emery. She's your daughter. I didn't move for what felt like a full minute. The name stared back at me from the page, black ink trembling in my grip. Emery. The kind of name you circle on a baby list, but never actually use. The kind that sounds too beautiful for real life. I felt my heart press against my ribs like it was trying to escape. I read it again. Her name is Emery. She's your daughter. My daughter. That word. It didn't make sense. It didn't belong to me. I didn't have children. Kayla and I had tried for a couple of years, sure. There were appointments, medications, disappointments. But after a while, she stopped trying. Told me she wanted to focus on her career, and I didn't push back. I never pushed back on anything. That was the problem. But now, standing in my driveway with dew settling on my windshield and this paper clutched in my fist like a confession, I felt rage rise in me. Quiet, sad, trembling rage. If this was a lie, it was cruel. If it was true, it was worse. I went back inside, locked the door, and sat on the floor like a man whose home had just collapsed. I wanted to scream, but my voice had long been buried under years of silence. I stared at my reflection in the oven glass, unshaven, tired, 39 going on 50, and asked the stupidest question a person can ask themselves. What if? What if Kayla had gotten pregnant right before I left? What if she never told me because she didn't want me involved? What if Emery was real? My daughter? And what if all this time I had been sitting in this empty house trying to heal, while a part of me was out there living and breathing and needing answers? I looked through the front window, hoping maybe, insanely, she'd be back. That red hoodie, those eyes. But the street was empty. Quiet. Too quiet. I spent the rest of the day pacing like an animal in a cage. I didn't eat. I didn't shower. I just kept thinking back, trying to piece together clues I never noticed. I remembered one night, weeks before everything fell apart, when Kayla had clutched her stomach and smiled faintly to herself while watching TV. I asked her what was funny. She just shook her head and said, "Nothing. Just life." I thought it was some weird philosophical moment. But what if it was something more? That night, I did something I swore I'd never do again. I typed her name into Facebook. It felt dirty, like reopening a wound you know hasn't healed. Her profile was private, but her cover photo had changed recently. It was a blurry picture, shot from behind. A teenage girl in a red hoodie walking through a field. I zoomed in. It was her. Emery. I recognized the posture. The way she tilted her head, just slightly, like she was always listening to something distant. I didn't sleep again. I couldn't. My hands kept shaking, and my chest ached in that way you don't tell your doctor about, because you're too ashamed to admit you're just lonely. That someone knocked, and you're still not sure if it was a miracle or a warning. And then, the next day, the doorbell rang again. I opened it without hesitation. But it wasn't Emery. It was Kayla, and she looked terrified. Kayla stood on my doorstep like she'd never left. No suitcase, no car keys in hand, no umbrella to shield her from the soft drizzle starting to fall. Just her. Older, sharper, thinner than I remembered. Her hair was darker now, shorter too, and her lips trembled even though she wasn't speaking. She opened her mouth once, then closed it. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. My breath was stuck somewhere between my ribs and my throat, and all I could do was grip the doorframe and wait for reality to hit. She finally broke the silence with a whisper that cracked on the edges. "You saw her?" I nodded, slow and deliberate. Her shoulders dropped. Relief? Guilt? I couldn't tell. Maybe both. "I didn't want it to be like this," she said, stepping forward. I didn't move. She stopped just short of the threshold, as if the past itself was barricading her from crossing. "I didn't expect her to come to you. Not yet." "Why?" It came out as a dry rasp. My voice felt foreign. She glanced down, fiddling with the sleeve of her coat like she used to do when she was lying. "Because I was supposed to tell you. I thought I'd have more time. I didn't think she'd go looking for you." I stared at her. The silence between us swelled like an incoming storm. "How old is she?" Kayla looked up. Her eyes were glassy, red-rimmed. "She just turned 15. 15. That meant Emery had already existed when I left. Kayla had known. And she said nothing. I took a step back, letting the bitterness in my chest swirl. "You kept her from me for 15 years. She flinched. "I didn't do it to hurt you." "Then why?" My voice cracked this time. "I didn't care." Her lips quivered. "Because I didn't know if you were the father." Those words didn't just knock the air out of me. They buried it. My knees went weak, but I held onto the door like it was the only thing tethering me to the ground. "What?" "I was going to tell you." I swear. But after that night, when you left without a word, I thought maybe it was better for her not to know. I didn't want her to grow up thinking her dad abandoned her. I didn't abandon anyone. I snapped, louder than I meant. My voice echoed down the street, and a curtain twitched in the neighbor's window. I walked away from you, Kayla. From your betrayal. Not from a child I didn't even know existed. She was crying now, arms wrapped around herself, mascara bleeding under her eyes. I made a mistake. A huge one. But I loved her. I raised her. And when she started asking about you, I couldn't keep lying. I thought I had more time to prepare. She showed up alone. I cut her off. With a note. Told me I don't know the whole story. Then the next day, someone taped another message to my car. Said her name was Emery. That she was my daughter. Kayla's expression changed. Confusion first. Then real fear. That wasn't me. I blinked. What? I didn't send her. I didn't know she found you until she came home crying last night. She said you looked at her like she was a ghost. She's been locked in her room since. So who wrote the notes? I asked, heart pounding. Kayla's answer was barely a whisper. I think he's out. The man I left you for. Carter. He's out of prison. And he's looking for her. The moment Kayla said his name, I felt it like a punch to the stomach. Carter. I hadn't heard it out loud in years. It had lived in the back of my mind like mold behind drywall. Never visible, but rotting everything just the same. He was the reason my marriage collapsed. The reason I left my home without a fight. The reason I stopped trusting people altogether. And now, according to Kayla, he was back. I didn't invite her in. I didn't slam the door either. I just stood there, watching the drizzle pool around her boots as she wiped her eyes with her sleeve and continued, her voice shaky. He got out 6 months ago. Early release. Good behavior or some ridiculous technicality. I didn't tell Emery because I didn't want to scare her. He wasn't supposed to know where we lived. She looked up at me. But someone's been following us. I felt my jaw tighten. Following you? You didn't think to maybe tell me that when our daughter... I paused, correcting myself. When Emery showed up on my doorstep alone. Kayla bit her lip hard, guilt washing over her face. She's clever. She must have used one of my old documents to track you down. I had no idea until she came home crying. That's when I saw the note she wrote. I didn't tell her to come here. But I think maybe she thought you could protect her. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. Me? Protect her? I couldn't even protect myself from Kayla when she tore my life in half and ran off with the man who destroyed everything. Now she was standing here, asking for something from the ashes she left behind. But I couldn't deny it. The second she said Emery might be in danger, something shifted in me. A part of me I tried to kill off, bury, or ignore suddenly came gasping for breath. If she really was mine, and Carter was really back, then Emery needed more than regret and broken promises. She needed answers. She needed someone. Still, something didn't add up. How would Carter know she's not his? I asked. You said you weren't sure who the father was. I wasn't. But he did the math. She's too old. He always had doubts, especially toward the end. And when he was arrested, he started getting paranoid. Accused me of using him. Said he'd take what's his when he got out. Her hands were shaking. At first I thought he meant money. But now I think he meant Emery. That did it. I stepped back from the door and opened it fully. Kayla looked surprised. You're letting me in? I didn't answer. I just turned and walked into the living room, leaving the door open behind me. She followed. The moment she stepped in, the air between us felt suffocating. This house hadn't seen her in years, yet somehow it still remembered her. The couch where she used to fall asleep with a glass of wine. The bookshelf she insisted on organizing by color. All untouched. Frozen. I want a paternity test, I said quietly, staring at the floor. Not because I don't believe you, but because if I do this, if I put myself in the middle of this again, I need to know for sure. She nodded, whispering, of course. I turned to her. And if she is mine, I'm not just protecting her. I'm keeping her. Kayla looked down, and for once, she didn't argue. Suddenly, something rattled the front window, hard. We both jumped. I rushed over and peered out into the street. A white envelope had been taped to the glass. No sign of who left it. I opened the window, grabbed the envelope, and tore it open. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. It was Emery, standing on her school's front steps. And next to her, holding her hand, was Carter. I stood frozen, gripping the Polaroid with both hands as if it might slip through my fingers and vanish. The photo was fresh, shiny, crisp, with the chemical smell still clinging to it. Emery's face wasn't fearful. It was blank. That's what scared me most. She wasn't smiling, but she wasn't panicked either. She looked like someone who didn't know she was being watched. Or worse, someone who had already surrendered to it. Carter stood next to her, sunglasses on, mouth curved into the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. He looked calm, confident, like this wasn't a threat, but a message, a declaration. I can get close. I already have. I handed the photo to Kayla. Her hands flew to her mouth the second she saw it, eyes wide in disbelief. That was yesterday, she whispered. She wore that red sweatshirt to school yesterday. I drove her there at 8 and picked her up at 3. She never mentioned seeing him. Maybe she didn't want to scare you, I said quietly. Or maybe she didn't think she was in danger. Kayla turned to me, and for the first time in years, her voice broke in a way I remembered from long ago, before Carter, before the lies. He said he'd come for her. He said when he got out, he'd take what he was owed. I thought he meant custody battles, harassment, not this. I looked at her with 1,000 thoughts clawing at the inside of my skull, but only one made it out. You need to take me to her. Now. Kayla hesitated, chewing her lip. She's at school. No, I cut her off. Not tomorrow. Not later. Right now. Wherever she is, we're going. She nodded, already pulling out her phone to call Emery's school. Her hands were shaking so badly, she dropped it on the floor. I picked it up and dialed the front office myself, pretending to be Emery's uncle. Family emergency, I told the receptionist. We're coming to get her. 20 minutes later, we were parked outside the school. I hadn't seen her in person since the day she knocked on my door. I wasn't ready then. Now, I didn't have a choice. She came out of the side door, escorted by a counselor. The second her eyes met mine, she stopped in her tracks. Her hands curled into fists at her sides. I stepped forward slowly, not wanting to spook her. You came, she said softly. I nodded. We need to talk. She looked at Kayla, then back at me. You saw the photo? Yes. She blinked hard like she was fighting something back. He's been following me for weeks. Why didn't you tell anyone? I tried, but Mom would freak out, and I didn't want to go back to court. And you, her voice cracked. You looked so scared when you saw me. I knelt down in front of her, voice quiet. That wasn't fear. That was shock. Emery, if I had known about you, if I had known you were mine. She pulled something from her backpack and handed it to me. Another photo. Not a Polaroid. A printed one. From a phone. It was a screenshot of a birth certificate. Her birth certificate. Father, Eli Mercer. I didn't know I'd started crying until she did too. We hugged. For the first time in 15 years, I was holding something real. Not guilt. Not regret. Her. But before the moment could settle, Kayla's phone buzzed in her purse. She fished it out, glanced at the screen, and went pale. He knows we picked her up, she whispered. He just texted me. She handed me the phone. The message was simple. 3's a crowd. I want her back. Tonight. We didn't go home. We didn't even talk about it. As soon as I read that text, I tossed Kayla's phone into the glove compartment and pulled the car into gear. Emery sat in the back seat, hugging her backpack like a life preserver, while Kayla sat silently beside me, her fingers twitching on her knees. I didn't know where we were going, only where we couldn't stay. Carter knew where she lived, and now he knew where Emery was. That meant we had no time to wait for lawyers or police reports or whatever legal game he was playing. He wasn't trying to win custody. He was trying to take her. We ended up in a rundown motel an hour outside of town. The kind of place where the front desk clerk didn't ask questions and the vending machine hummed louder than the AC. Room 214 had 2 queen beds, 1 broken lampshade, and a door that barely latched unless you shoved it with your shoulder. I bolted it 3 times and shoved a chair under the knob anyway. We didn't sleep that night. Emery curled up under the blanket, earbuds in, but I knew she wasn't listening to music. She was wide awake, just like me. Kayla sat in the corner chair, arms wrapped around her stomach like she was holding herself together. I stood at the window, pulling back the curtain just enough to watch the parking lot. Every set of headlights made my heart race. Every creak in the hallway outside made me reach for the lamp like it could do anything to stop him. Around 3 a.m., Emery whispered, "He used to leave gifts." I turned. She was sitting up now, legs crossed, eyes puffy but steady. Little ones. Like bracelets. Ice cream. One time, a phone. He said it was a secret between us. that I'd understand when I got older. Kayla went pale. He told me the same thing when we started dating, she muttered. That secrets are how you protect the ones you love. I felt bile rise in my throat. He groomed both of you, I said, the words jagged in my mouth. He doesn't want custody, Kayla. He wants control. Always did. She nodded, eyes glistening. I know, but I didn't see it then. I thought I was trading up. That you were too soft. And he was power. Now I see he was poison. I should have felt some twisted sense of satisfaction hearing that. But I didn't. I just felt tired. Hollow. Then Emery pulled something else out of her backpack, a folded envelope. I found this in Mom's closet last week. I opened it slowly, careful not to tear it. Inside was a stack of letters. Not printed emails or texts, handwritten letters, in Carter's distinctive, slanted scrawl. They were dated from the last 2 years. Each one was addressed to Emery, but Kayla had hidden them. Emery had never seen them before she found the envelope by accident. One letter caught my eye. It was short, just a few lines. I see her eyes in every girl who walks past me. She's mine. She knows she's mine. Soon, she'll feel it too. I've waited long enough. I felt the page crumple in my hand before I realized I was squeezing it. He's watching us, I whispered. Kayla stood up. Then we go to the police. We show them this. We will, I said. But not from here. If he's that close, we need to move again. Just as I reached for the chair blocking the door, there was a knock. 3 slow taps. Then silence. My skin went cold. Emery gripped my arm. Kayla stepped back. I crept toward the peephole and looked through it. But there was no one there. Just another envelope on the floor. I picked it up with trembling hands. Inside was a photo. Me, Kayla, Emery, taken just an hour ago, through the motel room window. For a long time, I couldn't move. The photo trembled in my hands, the edges damp from the sweat on my palms. It wasn't just the 3 of us in the picture that unsettled me. It was the angle, taken from above, through the very window I had checked a dozen times that night. I rushed to the curtains and yanked them open. Nothing but the empty parking lot and the flickering orange glow of a dying street lamp. I looked up. There, just a few feet above our room, was a maintenance balcony, rusted, barely holding together, but close enough for someone to lean over and snap a picture. I bolted from the room before Kayla or Emery could stop me and ran up the back stairs. The metal groaned beneath my steps. But by the time I reached the landing, it was empty, all except for a black glove and a crushed cigarette still warm beside it. I knew what this was. The final warning. Back in the room, Emery sat curled in Kayla's arms, eyes wide and scared but fierce. I knelt in front of her and said what I should have said the day she showed up at my door. I'm not leaving you. No matter what happens. Not again. She looked at me, then quietly reached into her pocket and handed me something I hadn't seen before, her phone. She opened an app. Voice memos. She pressed play. A recording played. Grainy, muffled, but there it was. Carter's voice. He was talking to someone on the phone, saying things no lawyer could ever explain away. He talked about Emery like she was property, a pawn, something he was entitled to. And then he said it. I don't care what Kayla says. That kid's mine, even if I have to scare her into choosing me. I stared at Emery, stunned. You recorded this? She nodded. He followed me to the park. I acted calm. Got him talking. Hit record before he even realized. I smiled. A real one. You're smarter than both of us combined. The next morning, we went to the police. Showed them the photo, the letters, the voice memo. Everything. For once, the system didn't shrug us off. Carter was arrested later that week. The officers said he never even denied it. Just smirked and said, she came looking for her father. I just wanted her to find the right one. He won't be getting out this time. Emery moved in with me 2 weeks later. It's not easy. We're both learning how to be in each other's lives. But there's laughter now. We argue about music. We burn frozen pizzas. We take long walks where she tells me stories I should have known years ago, but I'm here now. And so is she. As for Kayla, she's healing in her own way. She visits sometimes. We don't pretend we're a family again, but we're something close to human. Honest. That's a start. And now, every night, before bed, Emery double-checks the window locks. Just in case. But deep down, I think we both know. He's gone. And we're finally safe. Have you ever received a warning you didn't understand until it was almost too late? Share your story in the comments. We want to hear from you. Thanks for being here with us on Reddit Confessions, where secrets don't stay buried forever.